Good to be back in God's house again. Good to see everyone out tonight. I enjoyed the service this morning, the good crowd out, and boy, I tell you, it's good to be in church tonight. Before we get into the service, would anyone have a prayer request? Anything you'd like to make mention?
Pray for the lost, pray for the people that I work with.
Remember that. Let's pray for little Gunner. And the Lord's really dealing with that little boy. He's not quite ready yet. You know, I asked if he wanted to go back and talk or pray right now, and he just kept kind of pulling away, turning his back. You know, you have to get ready, and he's getting ready. So just pray for him. I texted Michael today and said if he needs me to come by the house and talk to him, whatever it takes. So let's pray for that whole family. It's good to see him in church. Anyone else?
I'm thankful for the Lord's Closet and
Yeah.
Kim's vision and what Oak Hill stands for.
Yeah. Yes, Thank the Lord for the good crowd that come out tonight for that meeting. You know, it takes a lot to put that Lord's Closet together. The people behind the scenes, you know, just a few people don't put that together. It's a lot of people working together to make that. Yeah. For sure, the clothes and the food and exactly. A lot of people that's.
It starts early in the week.
Yeah.
Some go to Ashland, pick it up. Some of them
Yeah.
do when they get back to unload. And
Yeah.
there's a variety of things behind the scenes.
Right. So remember the Lord's Closet. It's growing. That's good. We just need to get the love of Jesus out there. Yeah. Anyone else? I've been looking forward to hearing Rob's testimony about his trip, and looking forward to that tonight. So at this time, I'm going to ask everyone to come around and pray. I'm old school, folks. I like a good old altar prayer. Y'all might get tired of coming to the altar to pray, but there's just something about when I kneel in the altar and pray. So let's come and pray at this time. You don't have to if you don't feel like coming. Father, we thank you for this day that you blessed us with. We just thank you, Lord, for the many blessings of life. We just pray that you just be with the service tonight. Lord, pray that you just be with Brother Rob as he speaks for us tonight. Lord, pray that you just give him the words to speak. We just pray for all the special prayer requests. We just pray for little Gunn. You just keep dealing with his mom. Lord, be with the Michael Lucy friends. Lord, pray that you just get them all in the church. Lord, we just pray that you just be with the Lord. Thank the Lord for the good meeting that we had tonight, Lord. We just pray that you just be with us as we grow as a church, Lord. We'll just always keep you first in everything that we do. Lord, pray that you just be with us this week as we go out into the world, Lord, that we just let our light shine, Lord. People can see you in us. Pray that you just pray that you just be with our country. Lord, pray that we just turn back to you as a nation. We just love you and we just thank you for everything. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen. Rob, you want Brady to sing first, or you want to go first? You want to go first? It doesn't matter. You want them to sing, or you want? Okay, come on, Brady. You and Grace can sing. Pray for Brady and Grace as they sing. I think Daniel, you got a song too? No.
I'll stay on this side. Tell them why you use your sides.
So you might notice we're standing opposite what we was this morning. I told Grace when we got down I was tired of dancing, doing this number all the time up here, so. We got a request to sing this song, so we're gonna give it a try. To be well known by men, I may not ever be. I'm sure my name will not go down in be lost, misplaced, or overlooked, for it's kept safely in God's record book. There's a record book my name is written in. It was recorded there when I was born again. No one can blot it out. It's sealed forevermore. It's in that book of life kept by the Lord. No one can blot it out. It's sealed forevermore. It's in that book of life kept by the Lord. We take requests, write them on a $50 bill, send them on up. You don't want to do that.
Sure.
I don't even know what the name of that song is. That's all you, sister.
Do this one.
Huh?
Do that one.
Okay. Thought I was getting out of that. We learned this song probably a year ago. Then we forgot about it. How's it go? That's it. The Israelites were waiting for a long, long night of death. All of Egypt's firstborn would draw their final breath. Yet God had made provision for his own to be saved. The blood upon the doorpost would keep old death away. A mother held her children with comfort and care. Sweet peace filled the house that night as Father said the prayer. Dear great God in heaven, thank you for your love. Thank you for salvation purchased by the blood. Oh, death, move along. This house is covered by the blood. Oh, death, move along. This house is covered by the blood. We have no need to fear. The child of God lives here. Oh, death, move along. This house is covered by the blood. One day this old house of clay will crumble to the ground. But death has no dominion, he can't hold me down. I'll soon be resurrected, very much alive. For this old house is covered by the precious blood of Christ. Oh, death, move along. This house is covered by the blood. Oh, death, move along. This house is covered by the blood. We have no need to fear. The child of God lives here. Oh, death, move along. This house is covered by the
thank you for coming out. We just had so much going on since we got back that it's the first chance we really had to schedule this event. I appreciate your interest, and this is it's kind of this is my third opportunity to go and do an international mission trip. Been to Honduras twice, and now to East Africa. This trip kind of came up for me somewhat unexpectedly. My brother-in-law's church over in Fletcher had been planning this trip for some time, and about 3 months before we went, I got a phone call from Danny saying a couple of the men's schedule has changed and they're just not going to be able to go. Do you think you might want to go with us? Man, and I thought, what an awesome opportunity to go somewhere that far from home, and just something you really, I don't know if I'd ever even really dreamed about the possibility of that. But I first told him no until the next day, and I had to tell him yes. We talked about it at home and realized, what an opportunity of a lifetime to get to go and do this. And it truly was. It was wonderful. June 25th through July 6th. And we had a great trip. I want to start out just saying, and thinking about this, and we'll quickly get to the slides and let you see a little bit of what I was able to see and experience. But I thought about this church and all my life, how this has been my church. I'm like Doug and his home church. This is my home church. And, we lived away for about 7 or 8 years, but came right back. When we were home on vacation or at Christmas, this is where we went to church. And when we moved back here, this was, you just came right back into your old church. But I've always noticed and appreciated about my church is that it's always been very supportive of missions. And that's, community missions, state missions, international missions. I could call off a bunch of names, and I thought about those names, and 75% of the people here wouldn't even know who I'm talking about. But some dear ladies that maybe they're all gone now, but they were so dedicated to meeting as the Women's Missionary Union, the WMU, and they met regularly, and they prayed for missionaries, and they had their calendars where they prayed for them on their birthdays, and it was important to them. And they kept that fire burning here. Every church hopefully has got some version of that story to tell, but I'm familiar with those ladies that did that here. And they got together and they quilted and they just did things that they could raise money, and that money went into mission support. And that meant a lot to me. And so, I think a lot of us have that legacy and can appreciate and remember missions have always been emphasized in our church. I want to also stop and say thank you to each of y'all. My church supported me financially, and that was greatly appreciated. My church supported me in prayer, and I felt that, and that was greatly appreciated too, a long way from home. So I want to say thank you there. The Tuckasegee Baptist Association supported me. I had a couple of family members that threw in and supported. So, they made it a very, very minor input that I had to do financially. And again, I'm grateful for that. I just want to say thank you. I hope I've said that before, but I do mean that. Trip was coordinated by Boiling Springs Baptist Church over in Fletcher. There were 7 of us men that got to go together, and it was really a nice little variety of backgrounds. We had 2 Henderson County deputy sheriffs. We had a machinist, an engineer, a school teacher, a retired construction building contractor, and a laborer extraordinaire. That was me. I didn't have any fancy names, so that's all I could come up with. And that's usually my role. I mean, I go knowing that. I'm not I'm knowledgeable, but I'm not necessarily gifted at any of those things. But Danny says he likes to work with me because he usually turns around and I've got the tool that he's going to need holding it out to him. And I do try to look and do those things. And this was that kind of trip. It was just, we showed up, we were told the task, and then we just had to sit down and figure it out and do some measuring and go buy materials. And this trip, like I said, was started many months before we went. This church over there is very supportive, and they've dealt with this gentleman in Africa that has kind of headed up this little ministry. They've supported and worked with him for a long time. And not only did they help support their church members that went on this trip, but they sent about $3,000 with us they sent that in advance to buy a lot of the materials that we were going to need: gravel, cement, sand. And once we got there, we had some additional materials and tools to purchase. And we left, of course, all those tools behind for someone else to keep on using and benefiting from. But not only did we get to be a part of that, but on the financial side, they sent $12,000 for this church that we were working on to be able to buy the adjacent lot, which is eventually going to have a Bible college. So it just keeps on going, and I'll tell you a little more about that church here in just a minute that we were actually there working on. A year prior to us going, there had been a big typhoon, or as we would like to call it, a hurricane. Right off the coast, the east coast of Africa, Typhoon Freddy. And it parked itself there, and then it came ashore 3 times. And the flooding and the damage was tremendous. And I'm not sure the distance. I think Tanzania lies on the coast and was between us and the country of Malawi. So the damage was felt throughout southeastern Africa there, and a lot of flooding, just a lot of damage. And that led to the opportunity to go and do what we were able to do. I've told some of y'all about we flew out of Asheville. We flew from Asheville to Newark, New Jersey. From Newark, New Jersey, we boarded and flew 15 hours to Johannesburg, South Africa. Going over, we did get to spend the night in Johannesburg, and then the next day, we flew the other 2 hours on up to Malawi. Coming back, it was all done in one run. We went from where we were staying in Malawi to Johannesburg, a couple hour layover, back to Newark, 15 hours. We were tired too. Added factor, about 8 days of working. And then New Jersey, we laid over for a couple hours, couldn't get a direct flight back to Asheville, so we had to take a little side trip over to Chicago, Illinois. And then from Chicago, after a couple hours of layover, back to Asheville. So in one day, I got to see the skyline of New York City and Chicago and Asheville. But it was probably 30-hour journey coming home, and boy, it felt like you were swimming upstream the whole way. And I think I slept 2 hours out of that 30. Yeah, it was something. But the globe I brought, if you get a chance and you walk by, I tried to take some yarn and put on there just to kind of give you an idea of how far that we were away from home. Pretty good trip to go there. 6 hours time difference, 6 hours ahead of us, and it just, about the time we were getting used to it, it was time to pack your clothes and head back this way. But what an amazing opportunity. The majority of the flight, of course, is over the Atlantic Ocean, and it was dark about the majority of the time we were traveling, so no one really saw the ocean or realized that so much. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Okay, Dan. Let's. I'm gonna watch the slides with you, and there'll be a few things that I'll try to talk about, and then we'll just move through them. You're welcome to ask questions when we get there. These are the couples. Their wives went with us, and everybody was seen off on about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon over in Fletcher. They delivered us over to the airport, only about 5 minutes away from the airport. There's the group. There's the 7 men that went, and we got along great. You know, two of us had no affiliation with that church as far as membership. The rest of the guys are all members of the church, and we got along great. Had a good time. Okay. Give you an idea right there. That was on the back of the seat in the airplane, and I've told some of you that as we traveled, been on that plane a long time. You can imagine just, the seats are about as comfortable as these, and you're sitting there, and the only thing you got to do is when you need to go to the restroom, you get up and you make your way to the restroom, you make your way back to your seat, and you buckle up. Well, about 7.5 hours into the journey, I looked on the screen in front of me and could read, and it said, "You've traveled 4,000 miles, and you're halfway there." You got 4,000 more to go, so another 7.5 hours. The majority of it spent seated right there. But again, it was just amazing to get to do that. All right, Dan. This was also on that screen, told us we were flying at 622 miles an hour, 39,000 feet up in the air, 61 degrees below zero outside the plane. And that was just some interesting things that we got to look at. All right. My brother-in-law Danny on the left, view up through the airplane. And I don't know how many were on the plane, but there were three rows of seats, 2 aisles, 3, 3, and 3. So nine passengers wide, and we were toward the rear. We were not in any fancy seats, but we were comfortable. All right. Dan and his son Aaron, my nephew, this was inside the church building that we got to go and work on. You can see the little step up behind the guys there. Originally, this was the space that was dedicated to the entire church, probably 16 feet wide and 16 by 30, and that was the original church. Now they have built a baptistry in there. That baptistry is probably 2 feet deep, and got a water valve that's turned up inside. You can turn the water on and fill her up. And there's a lot of cracks in the floor, a lot of damage, and again, the building sustained quite a bit of trying to separate the sidewalls and just a lot of problems with all the rain and the settling that was occurring. But when we did get to attend the morning service there, the pastor up in front he's the head of the ministry there, and he's been kind of the senior pastor in that church for several years, and he's sort of passing that on. There's a young man probably about 30 years old that is taking over the pastoral lead, but this gentleman has a heart of gold, and he was on job site every day, and just a sweet person to deal with. Two more of these preachers. This is my nephew Joe, and of course myself, and we just were asked to come forward, introduce ourselves, and take a minute just to share any message that we had to share with the church there, and it was a blessing to get to do that. All right, Dan. Gentleman on the left, attached to this church building, there was a school, and it's connected to this church, so therefore I guess you consider a private school, but I don't know that these students have to pay, or if they do, it's a very minimal amount to go there. But the gentleman on the left is typical. He's probably close to 30 years old, high school graduate, but one of the teachers in the school. And when you saw these guys, they all had enough pride. They dressed this way every day. You saw them in dress pants and a good-looking shirt. Many of them wore a tie, and they had some pride in what they were doing. They wanted to stand out and be an authority figure. On the right, just outside the church building, the ladies in the blue skirts and the blue hats, they were part of a women's choir that sang in the morning service that we went to. All right. Lady on the left is the pastor I was showing you. It's his wife. I'm going to say these folks are in their late 60s. This is a grandchild that they're raising. And that's the inside of the church building. Nothing fancy, open rafters, concrete floor that, like I say, had many cracks in the floor. And, but it's a place to worship, and they did. I'll tell you a little more about that church here in a second. All right, Dan? Again, another picture of us. Many of these men worked, and not all these men attend that church, but they were very faithful to be there and help us on the job site the time we were there, and we enjoyed it. Now, I will point out, the school is, part of the school is the building to the right. The church building is on your left. It's just, they've done a foundation wall and then poured a slab. It's just a one-story building. Very few windows in those openings up there, and you'll see that in some more of the pictures. No actual glass or anything in the windows at the school, just a lot of welding. And, this classroom can hear what's going on in this one, and down the road, about Fairview Elementary. So behind us, and you can see above our heads back there, that's the main project that we ended up working on. We got there, and the walls, the right, if we faced from the front door and look back into the church, the right-hand wall was trying to pull away from the church. And we were tasked with, on the corners, we poured foundations and then attached to the masonry work with bolts. We built this form, which was about 12 inches deep and about 2 feet high, and we poured that with concrete. We put rebar steel in the concrete, and it was reinforced pretty well, but there were some crude things we had to do. And there'll be a picture here in a minute, but every bit of the concrete that was batched up and put into that was done right there on the flat ground. Gravel, wheelbarrow, we wheelbarrowed gravel in, dumped it out. We wheelbarrowed sand in, dumped on top of that. Took a couple bags of concrete, broke the cement open, poured it in, and then the batching began with just taking a shovel and just stirring it, and that's backbreaking, I'm telling you. Once that was batched up, and you just kind of worked your way across that pile, but when it was ready to go, we had about 6 men that would line up, and we would form a bucket brigade. We had 2 5-gallon plastic buckets, and concrete's heavy, so you could only go about a third of that bucket full, and we would pass it to the next guy, and ultimately, off of about a 6-foot ladder, it was held up to them, they poured it in that trough, and then that bucket went back for more. We figure in about 3 days, 4 days of work maybe, we batched up and poured about 8 yards of concrete. That's tough. I mean, it was a pretty crude way to do it, but it worked, and we got it done, and nobody was injured in this event, but it was our primary task, and that's what we worked on. All right, now, another picture, same group. You can see this is just outside the church, and there were several buildings attached there, and this church over the years has been able to buy and add to some of their facility, and like I say, they're going to be the primary people helping to create this Bible college. And let me tell you why that's important. This little church on Sunday morning when we were there probably had 75 people there, and they worshiped and they had a good time, and they cut it short because the pastor was going to go with our group, and that afternoon we actually went on our safari, and I'll have a few pictures to show you of that. But this one church, and I meant to do this in the beginning too, because you can spin that globe, and you can put a pencil down, and that pencil point probably going to cover a lot of ground. But let's say it landed on one particular dot, one particular city. If it landed on Sylva, North Carolina, it'd be a town of, 3,000 people? But if it landed that little dot on the city that we were working at, it looked just like the same dot on the map, but that little town's called Blantyre, Malawi. 1 million people live there. 1 million people, most of them unemployed, struggling to survive. It's quite interesting to see, but this church is responsible for over 300 church plants that have gone out throughout that country. They had the vision, and they teach and train and prepare these young men, and they may go, and it may be a household on the edge of that city of 1 million people, and maybe many households that are there. But everybody has to walk to get to these places. So, you're not going to walk 10 miles to come to church. And they can only have Sunday morning services because it's going to be black dark at 6 o'clock. And people can't, it's just dangerous. The streets are rough and irregular and potholes. And I don't know that it's dangerous as far as somebody attacking you. It's just dangerous to try to traverse that and do it. So they've established over 300 churches out of this one church. That's pretty amazing number to me. Not a huge church, but they have a vision and they get people trained up and they send them out. Go tell other people. And I'm sure they report back to the pastor here. All right, Dan, go ahead. Picture again inside the church. You see these open rafters in the church. That's another phase of what we did. We bought the bolts. They were like 1/2-inch bolts, about 5 inches long. And we installed, I'm going to say we probably installed 300 bolts in the trusses of this just to reinforce them. And boy, there's a lot of dust come falling down your face when you were handing up bolts and doing things. But that was needed, and we were able to accomplish that week as well. So we had to drill the holes, put the bolts. You can see the shiny heads of the carriage bolts there. And we were able to accomplish that and help reinforce that part of the building as well. All right. There's the beam on the right-hand side. There's the future concrete on the left side. And that was where it was at. There was no cement mixer, and it was just dumped out on the ground, and we went to work on it. And I just point out in the background there was this little tiny business there that faced the street that our understanding was they worked on refrigeration equipment. And I'll have a picture here in a minute to show you a little bit more about that. But again, you can see the condition. It was a masonry building that was not in the best shape, but it served their purpose. And they proudly came together and worshiped there, and it was a blessing to get to be there and to assist them. Myself and the pastor, tell me his name, Teresa. I'm trying to, Andrew, I just dropped that. Preacher Andrew, and again, he and I are about the same age, and he's sweet. He's just a sweet man, and he's got a huge heart for his nation of Malawi and neighboring countries. This truck on the right, he owned. He made it available to us when we needed to go purchase plywood and a variety of things. Russell and Chris and some of you guys will appreciate this. We bought plywood, finished plywood, and when we had to make cuts in it, when we went across the end of the plywood, it was 1x2s that had been laminated together to make the 4 foot wide, and then it had a veneer of plywood on the top and the bottom. I don't know the strength of that, but it held up what we were doing. But that's not what you would see here as far as layers of ply to make a sheet of plywood. But that was something we experienced. So he let us use this truck, and it was very handy. I think right there is when they were picking up our luggage and heading out when we first got there. All right. Safari. Never been on one of these things, and it was pretty interesting. We all traveled. We probably went 2 hours away from where we were staying. Of course, that 2-hour trip, if it had been on the kind of roads that we have here, would have probably been less than an hour. I've never been on such washboarded roads in my life, and had to check to make sure I had all the fillings in my teeth when we got back to where we were staying, man. It was rough. But we did go there and get to enter in. They had a Toyota Land Cruiser that had terraced seats, so we all got to travel through the safari in one automobile. A couple of the men from the church went with us. And, what I would say about that is like when we looked off the ship in Alaska and saw that big seal laying on a block of ice out there. We were in his backyard. We were seeing him right there, and we were visiting him in his backyard. We were in Africa. We were seeing these animals in their native habitat. Yes, there's a border around this thing, and it's 7,000 acres or something. It's pretty good size, but these are animals that native live there, but they brought them together to protect them. If they didn't protect them, they'd eat them. There's a reason for protecting them, and they've reproduced, and they have a significant number. Anna appreciated the one on the right. She was a big fan of The Lion King, and Pumbaa was her favorite character. So that's a warthog, and we saw 3 of those. All right, some of these I'm not going to be able to tell you what they were. Their names were given to us. I think the ones on the right they're in the impala family. They're all, of course, several different deer critters. We got very close to most of these, and they've seen so many cars tour through there that they're not too scared of us. So we got to be pretty close. All right, Dan. On your left, that wood on the ground is not what I want to show you. It's that python that's on the ground right in the middle of the picture. We drove by. We were told we probably would not see any snakes. They said, oh, yeah, we've got pythons, and we got black mambas, and we got green mambas, and I don't know what else. But the guy said this time of year when it's very dry, they're probably below ground. You're not going to see them. And one of the guys in the bus, the van we were in, said, hey, what's that? So we back up, and he said, well, maybe you are going to get to see one. He was very surprised. This, he said, was probably about 10 feet long, about half grown. And I'd say it was probably 6 inches or better in diameter. But pretty neat. River flows through the, well, pretty neat to get to see something like that. I was probably 10 feet away from it. I was safe. The river flows through this restricted area, and some of the animal life stay close to the river. Some of these pictures here in a minute will show you that. All right, this is pretty neat. So on the right, there's about 7 hippopotamuses laying there, just sunning and having a nice day. They tell us that those things can run about 35 miles an hour, and you don't want them to get after you because they're vicious. On the left, there's a mama, and you can't really see it, but right to kind of to her rear end, right in front of her, there's probably a 400-pound baby laying there. But we did get to see them, and one thing, as they began to get up and move about, it was funny because they would walk over to the edge of the river, and you thought, well, they're going to get a drink. Well, they did, and they just kept on walking, and then they went plumb out of sight. And in a minute or so, you would see 2 ears and a couple of nostrils come above the water, and that's all you could see. They were just cooling it, and so we got to see and experience some of that. All right, Dan. Giraffe on the left, only one we saw across the river. That elephant was standing there, and we all got a pretty good view of it. We were probably 150 yards away from that elephant. All right. This one we weren't 150 yards away from. We were about, from me to Mr. Russell back there, that close to this particular elephant. Sure enough, we were probably 50, 60 feet away, and again, he didn't seem too concerned. I guess he experiences this all the time. So he just kind of looked at us and flared his ears out and walked off. But I've been that close to an elephant, and I wasn't at the circus. It was pretty neat. This little dude on the left, I don't know his name, but there's something about him that just attracted me to him. That kid has no idea what that says on his shirt, but I liked it. He's just cute. He's just cute, and I naturally had to get a picture of that. But the kid sitting there with me in the church, his name was Miraculous. Only Miraculous I've ever met. So he was kind of neat. And of course, the other guys had to share a hat and sunglasses and fix him up a little bit. And he was enjoying the attention. And we got to hang out with him a little bit too. And you're just going to see a series. These are kids that go to that school right next door. And golly bum, beautiful. Biggest old smiles. And they love to give you a high five or shake hands with you. And one day we noticed that they would come up to you and they'd be shaking your hand and they just rubbing your arm. And I thought, what's that all about? Well, come find out. We had hair on our arms, they don't. Their arms are just as slick as they could be, and they were fascinated by seeing people with hair on their arms. A bunch of gorillas come to see their gorillas. It was cute. They were fascinated by what they saw. All right, Dan. Little sisters, man, what a cute picture. And I can't zoom in here, but if you could, man, there's just the whites of their eyes was so brilliant white and those dark eyes, but those matching dresses. And it was very, every day you saw just tons of kids, and they all looked like this, and their clothes all looked bright and clean. And they were clean, but if you could zoom in on this, the stains are there, the tears, and it's hand-me-downs, and it's the best they can do. But those two certainly caught my eye. They were beautiful. So these little stinkers, we're there in June. We're there in their winter time. It was about 75 degrees, and these guys were having their picture made. And that's about what it ran every day. So we had great work. We go to work, and it was about 60, and by midday it was 75, and it was very dry. So we saw rain one time while we were there. But again, look at the smiles, look at the kids. And my favorite part, I was asked what was my favorite part. Those kids, golly, they were wonderful, and couldn't have a lot of conversation with them. I mean, they learn English in school, but typically, how you doing? Fine, and that was pretty much the response you got. And but we're the same way. Somebody says, "How you doing?" I'm fine. But that's you do get a feel. You can look in the background. It's probably some of them's home. Nothing, pretty bad. All right, go ahead, Nick. Here we go. You couldn't take a picture of one or two of them usually, because by the time you got your camera ready, there's 25 of them in the picture. They're flashing the peace sign or a thumbs up, and just kids, just like our kids and grandkids, and they were loving it, and they were loving the attention, and watched them come out of school. You'd hear a bell ring, and they'd come out, and then they'd find somewhere preferably in the shade to eat their lunch. And most of them had a little plastic bowl. Probably wasn't Tupperware, but it protected their food, and they'd tear that off, and they're using their fingers in most cases, and they were eating rice or whatever they were able to bring to school. That's what they took to school, and they ate. Again, just a series of real cute pictures. The guys on the right, 2 or 3 from our group, interacting with them. We did buy a bunch of candy and stuff, so teachers probably really appreciated us loading them up and sending them back to class. But go ahead, Dan. Lady on the right, again, bright colors, very pretty, and catch your eye. And they tried to be neat and clean. And again, we're in a city of 1 million people, and people are walking continuously on both sides of the road, and it didn't seem to matter what hour of the day. And I don't know where they were going. They weren't going to their job. They didn't have a job. Most of them didn't. Men on the left, they had asked for permission to come inside the area there next to the church building, and they were having a little Bible study. And they were praying, and got a picture of them doing that. But apparently they'd asked for permission, and they're faithful to come there each week and spend time and study together. All right? Again, some more of the bright colors and cute kiddos. All right? So the picture on the left, of course, I'm estimating, and I've been told I exaggerate some. I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. We probably saw 100, and it may have been 1,000 people in this situation. Ladies carrying a child on their back, and in most cases, they had a big bundle of something. Be it sugar cane or produce or whatever. They had a pretty big burden on their head and the baby on their back, and they walked everywhere they go. And I asked for permission, and she let me take her picture. Little one don't even know it's in the world. It's so comfortable. Guy on the right, I told you about the shop where they work on the appliances and stuff. So he's making a delivery. And this is, again, got a refrigerator on top of his head. I don't know what he'd do when he needed to stop and rest, or I don't know what he needed to do when he got to where he was take it to unload. It looks to me like that would be pretty awkward for one person to set that down. But, they make do, and sometimes you see that happening and they're barefoot, and sometimes they got flip-flops or whatever they can come up with. Lots of times you can look at the shoes, and they can go to the store and get sized. The shoe, most cases, about 3 inches longer than it needed to be, but they were glad to have some protection on their feet. Shop on the left, beautiful colors, and this was a shop that we went in downtown that you could buy these bolts of fabric and make skirt or whatever. Some of the guys brought some of that type stuff home. Interesting fact about the stores downtown, and we're kind of seeing it happen here, but the majority of the businesses in downtown, this city of 1 million people, are either owned by the Arabs or the Chinese. And they don't come there and hire the locals to work for them. They come there and they bring their people, and they're drawing a lot of money out of this. Here's a strange fact. The average income of adult in Malawi is between $100 and $300 a month in American money. And again, a lot of them unemployed and not able to make that much. But there are businesses, and you see on the sidewalk, you see the produce spread out there. That's so common. As we came and went to work each day, people would throw out a blanket. They'd put bananas, potatoes, tomatoes. We saw the prettiest carrots you've ever seen. They had that out, and they were just trying to sell enough to get by, and the next day, and then we'll figure out how to do this again and again and again. That was their livelihood, and that's what they had to do. But this is just an example of some of the things we saw downtown. All right, now, the guy on the left's got a fancy broom, and that's what he's doing. He's sweeping. That was at the place they put us up, and it was more than adequate. It was pretty nice. But every morning in his knee-high rubber boots, the guy came out through there sweeping leaves that had fallen off those trees at nighttime, and boy, he got them clean too. Well, it was kind of neat, and they were friendly, and we tried to tip everybody a little something before we left. The alleyway there on the right is a very typical scene. Didn't smell the best, a lot of debris, a lot of stuff gets thrown down, washed down. It's just, that's not the most pleasant thing to see, but that's a reality of a whole lot of that whole city of 1 million people. All right, Dan. Again, just a couple more shots of the church building itself. And you can see on the left the two openings higher on the wall. That's just a part of the area of the original church building. And there's no glass, no windows, nothing there. It's the birds come and go, and but again, they make best they can with what they have, and it was neat to see. I don't think we put the picture in here, but there's on the back side of that building, took a snapshot of the electrical power coming into the building, and there's wires that are just twisted together there, and that's it. There's no tape, there's no wire nuts, there's nothing, but that's how it's feeding power. Most days we would experience a rolling blackout. Sometime during the day, unexpected, you'd start trying to hit your circular saw and there's no power. And they didn't last long, 30 minutes or so, but they just had to roll it around, give different parts of the city electricity. They just didn't have enough for everybody at the same time. All right. Our friends here on the left, on top of the place that we stay, we had about 10 monkeys that stayed on the roof, and boy, I don't know if they were playing hopscotch or what they were doing at nighttime, but then they were sliding around and all over the place, and so they weren't mean to us, but they sure did make a lot of noise. All right, there's a little closer view of these things. Not sure what kind of monkey it is, but it's a monkey. All right. Okay, here's a common thing that's kind of discouraging. 3 meals a day. These people, the majority of these people eat what you're looking at right there 3 times a day. And on the plate on the right, it's kind of a corn mush. It's almost the texture of cornbread. And there were 3 men that were going to eat out of these 2 plates. They were working with us, and they took time at lunchtime, and they went next door and they prepared this, and they were going to eat. And they break off a pinch of the bread, and then they just sop it in the other. If you notice all the fish and the eyes looking at you on the left, Jennifer would like that a lot, I know. But this is called sema. Don't know the meaning of that, but sema. And sure enough, they offered me some, but I was kind and said no, thank you. But The rule of thumb for us, they said if food's hot and been prepared and cooked, if you want to try it, try it. But if it's in its raw form or cold, leave it alone. You just didn't want to take that chance of getting your stomach tore up. But yeah, that's SEMA, and that's 3 times a day for most of those people. I think we get tired of that, but it keeps them going. All right. This mountain, I could see it. It was not that far away from it was in the edge of the town, but the main thing I wanted you to look at, you can see how brown it looks. It's been deforested. They've just clear cut it and burnt the wood and done what they need to do to use it. And that's something pretty common that you see. A lot of areas where, again, with the high demand, with that many people in their households in order to fire up and to be able to cook the food and that. If we dropped scraps at the job site, you could bet they weren't there the next morning. They got picked up and carried into houses just to be burned and used for whether it be cooking. They didn't really need it for heat that time of year, but very common sight. And of course, a mountain like that, if you get torrential rain, you're gonna have landslides. You're gonna have a lot of mud rushing off of those mountains. So it's a problem to do that, but the damage is done, and that's the significance of that picture. Okay, Dan. All right, my little buddy. When we started to leave Malawi, I'm sitting on board the plane beside this young lady. I had no clue if she could speak English. So 10, 15 minutes into the flight, the stewardess came by and looked at the young lady and said, "Can I get you a snack?" And she said, "What do you have?" I said, "Okay, I guess we can talk." So this little gal's name is Emmeline. She says, "But you can call me Emmy." And we did chat it up for about an hour and a half. She is from a country of, I might think of it. It starts with a B, but it's in South Africa also. And she was traveling by herself, going to spend a month out of school with her grandparents down there. Botswana. Thank you. That's where it was. But we exchanged photographs of each other, and she takes her phone out and she starts typing this information in below the picture, and she says, "This is Mr. Rob. He's 67 years old. He's from America." And she put a couple more facts, and she said, "He's my best friend." And I loved it. And I said, "Well, you know what? I don't know how to do that on my phone." And she said, "Give me that phone." 9 years old. So she takes the phone and she goes to the screen and does what she needs to do. And she puts Emmy across the top and then the BF for best friend. And so I have that picture of her, and she was so sweet and enjoyed that. I met 3 different people in my travels. You wouldn't think I would talk to anybody and do that, but Lord opened those doors, and I walked right through it. It was fun. All right, we can go on. This guy, back in the States, checking all the news, traveling about 10,000 miles to get home. Oh, man, sure enough, about 30 hours coming back, and I slept about 2 of those 30. But seriously, we talked about it. It's roughly 10,000 miles to get to where we went to. And I told the kids in Bible school, I looked this up. Have any of you all had the opportunity to visit Hawaii? Anybody? Well, I thought there'd be somebody. So we know that's a long way from here. And so this journey, one leg of the journey, going over or coming back, would be equivalent to leaving Asheville Airport, flying all the way out to Honolulu, circling the airport, and turn around and coming all the way back. And that would be the distance we traveled on going or coming separately. And that's a long old journey. And I wouldn't want to do that. To me, that would be, of course, I'd say give me a parachute. If I'm this close to Hawaii, let me out of here. But that was the journey, and it takes a toll on you. I think that's the hardest part of the whole trip, was that 15-hour flight. All right, go ahead, Dan. Is that it? Okay. I brought a few things back. Again, the globe up here, if you get a chance to look at it, it's easier to get an idea of how much ground we covered on that trip. I've got some of the Malawian money. Their money, $1 American equal to $2,000, or their money is called kwacha. Their economy is terrible, and we'd be giving tips to people, and you hand them something that says 2,000 on it, and you think, well, that's pretty generous, and you're giving them $1. But they appreciated $1, and most of them, they were very appreciative to get that, and when we learned a little bit more and got a little bit better involved with the system, we tried to step that up a little bit. But there's some money there. There's one bill there, and it came from South Africa. It's called a rand, and it's a little different situation there. 2 or 3 things that I brought that were carvings that I brought home. Again, weight limit, the stored bag, you could have about 40 pounds in there, and you just didn't know what you could get by with loading up and bringing back. My brother-in-law brought a rock back about the size of your fist. I didn't know if he would get it through customs, but he did, and he's already laid it in a chimney that he's building at his house. So he brought his African rock back home with him. The bowl over there, again, just another carving, and I thought it was really pretty, and I brought that to give to the church. I want to leave that here at the church. This bowl, Eddie, do you remember? Yeah, I know it, and I couldn't remember if it was one of the trips you made, or I don't know. Several of us have had the opportunity to go down there, but this mahogany bowl came back from Honduras, and I wanted to bring another one back. And sometimes we use them for special offerings or whatever. But it'll be here just as a reminder, and it's also to remind the church that you guys were very helpful to me and gave me that opportunity to make that trip. A couple of takeaways, and I'll be done. We sing the song, and I got to go 10,000 miles away, and you can still sing the song. He's got the whole world in his hands. It's awesome to see what God's doing there, and that's just, again, that's a little dot on the map that I had the opportunity to visit and experience and see God working somewhere I never thought I'd get to, but it's just such a great reminder. Number 2, I wrote down, I have so much to be thankful for. Woo. It's what we've been raised with, so we're accustomed to it, and we take so much for granted. And our country is so blessed, and you can tell somebody that all day long, but when you go and you see how people are moving about on foot, I think half of our country just sit on the corner and starve to death because they're too lazy to go march somewhere and try to find a meal or create some situation where they could have a little bit of income to survive. I mentioned to you that we're in North Carolina Missions offering this month, and our church participates heavily in other Baptist mission offerings. Lottie Moon, Annie Armstrong, those offerings that we support. But that money you put in the plate, it makes a difference. And when it all adds up and it goes to meet needs, it makes a tremendous difference. Like I say, the sponsoring church sent $12,000 to buy that piece of land, and that was everybody in that church contributing, and they got to be a part of that blessing. The $3,000 to buy the building materials, a couple $1,000 were spent on tools and materials that we had to purchase once we got there and fully understood what we were going to do. The church name, I did not mention it, it's called Maranatha Baptist Church. The city, again, is Blantyre, Malawi. Many have asked, would you go back again? I think I would. I loved what I experienced there, and I love the fellowship with the men, and there's a lot of pluses to it. The travel's tough. And I just can't, if you've never been on a plane that long, and I doubt you've had opportunity to do that, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard on you physically, and even if you could go to sleep really good, an hour or two later, that guy sitting beside you is going to need to get up, and he's going to have to climb over top of you. You're going to have to stand up and let him out into the aisle, and so it's just not it's the best you can do, unless you take a cruise ship, and that would, I guess, that'd kind of defeat the purpose. And it'd take a whole lot longer too. But anyhow, that's it. Any questions? I don't know that I can answer them, but I'll try.
We always ask the missionaries your food story. So what did you eat?
Well, we ate really good. The place we stayed has kind of a traveling chef that they apparently own several, kind of a chain of these motels. And they had brought in a chef to be there that week, and part of the plan that we purchased from them was our room and board, and they provided a breakfast and an evening meal. They presented a menu to us we could select, and the evening meal, we were told we'd be there at 7, and shortly after 7 they were serving us, and pizza, pork chops. It was well, I think it was pork. I don't know. I'm not really sure. We always swore in Honduras that we probably ate some of those big old lizards down there. I don't know. Yeah. I don't think it was all chicken. That's for sure. But you said that, and I did have a thought. So one of the missionaries that were over there, we talked to him a little bit, and he said, we go and visit these orphanages as often as we can. And he said, we take something to them in the orphanages, and he said the kids go crazy about them. Y'all gonna freak out on this one. They try to take them a big old box full of mice, and they take a spit and they slide those mice down that, and they cook those mice up, and they Leanne, you'd love it. No, we didn't see any of the mice, but as we went to the area where we went on the safari, we pulled off the side of the road, and in 15 seconds, the van that we were in was surrounded by people holding up bananas and all these things, trying to, they're just trying to survive, and what they can sell you is going to help them a little bit. And we did see away from the van one of those spits being held up, but it wasn't mice, it was birds. It was small birds that they had slid down the spit, and they'd cooked those. And another thing we saw, talking about eating, you'll like this one. Down off the mountain where we went to go on the safari, we started noticing these mounds that were sticking up out of the ground, and they look like if you go to the beach and you take sand and you just it's still pretty wet, but you just kind of build a real irregular shape and just see how high you can build it. Well, that's really what they look like, and most of these were 6-7 feet tall. And so we asked, what in the world are those? They're termite dens. And I said, well, why are they still standing there? What do they do? He said, oh, no. He said, they eat those. He said, they love the termites. These two are adventuresome. They've probably been somewhere like that. And said that, they really like to. They'll take them and cook them up, and they eat them. And he said that it's kind of like popcorn to them. Next time you have a big bowl of popcorn, think about that. So I didn't eat any of this stuff, but that's some of the food stories. And again, do we take a lot for granted? Yeah.
Does all the kids go to school there at all?
Well, they do. They're supposed to, and their school is very much like ours. It's like at least first grade through 8th grade, and then they have an opportunity to go to the high school level. I don't know how many of them complete that. They do begin teaching English in those lower grades, so they have a basic understanding of that. I think you said that, and this would be a tie. We saw this in Honduras, and I saw it in another part of the world in Africa. Kids are kids, and kids laugh and pick and poke and just trip each other and pull hair and do the things kids do. And again, I think that's pretty much like that all around the world. But when they get to be about 11, 12 years old in these countries like this, they're no longer kids. They got to put on the coveralls and they put on the rubber boots and they're heading out with dad and they're picking tea leaves or they're cutting bananas or, you know, whatever that economy and what's available for them to do. But we saw that in Honduras and I saw it again here. Kids are kids and kids are happy and joyful and they really have a great childlike demeanor, but then all of a sudden that stops. All of a sudden they're a part of the household and they're out trying to help find and provide food and clothing for people living within their household. And the look on their face is noticeably different. You know, when you go from being a kid to all of a sudden having responsibility and having to go help and do these things, it's taken away. And that's some of the best years of our life. You know, you get to high school and then those years following, you know, that's an adventuresome and fun time in your life. And you know, I got to think about it. These kids have never been to a movie. They've never been to a ball game. They've never been roller skating. Certainly haven't been ice skating. But all these things that, you know, you got to do or go to an arcade and play games and bowling. I mean, just so many things we can think of that we can go pick and do. Not only have they never done it, they're never really going to have an opportunity to do it. It's just not there for them to do. They couldn't afford to do it if it was. And they just, you know, I think they know enough about America and other countries. They know these things exist, but the reality to them, they also understand that, you know, it's not an option for us. We just gotta, let's go to school, let's have our social time at school. You know, thankfully some attend church and have church families and realize the importance of that, and many come to know the Lord and that fellowship. But it's just sad when you look in their face and you see the you know, at a 12, 13 years of age, you still should be able to be a little goofy and be a kid. It's just not the case. So it's kind of sad. Anyone else? I can get it. I know how to get in touch with Andrew, and we can have SEMA at our next social activity. I won't eat it, but we can have it. Yeah, it looks like those little fish. And we were in a couple of different grocery stores, and you could see little packs of the fish, and you know it was readily available to them. I didn't determine how much that cost, but again, that's a staple of life for those folks. Anyone?
How's the gospel received there?
Well, it seems to be good, and it was sure encouraging to hear that they're really expanding and trying to put people out there to help spread the word. I don't know what the population of the country of Malawi is. I didn't look that up, but just in that one city, 1 million people. That's a bunch, and you know, again, when you're limited in transportation as far as getting out to people and everything, this is the best way to do it. You know, we send Deacon Grant out here, and if his family goes with him, they're a missionary out on the outskirts of the city, and you know, you have to be creative, and they are, and they're reaching people that way. This church, again, the singing was beautiful, and to be able to listen to. Again, I don't have my phone, and we would do that. The joyful singing and the praise that was taking place in the church, it was evident, and that was good. But there's bound to be a lot of people that are not hearing the word, and you know, it's hard to say how receptive they would be, but. I mean, you didn't really feel endangered there at all. So I think it's a friendly nation. Now, that's probably not true everywhere. There's some places in Africa that you would want to be extremely cautious, and that still may not be enough to get you by. But again, it makes you appreciate missionaries that say, "Hey, I got to go, and I'm going there, and if I lose my life, I lose it for the Lord." But yeah, there's a huge need and opportunity for us to pray for people, again, all over the world. I just had the chance to go to this one dot on the map and the country of Malawi and experience that. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you for coming and listening, and again, thank you for supporting me financially and prayers, and won't be forgotten. Your church, my church means a lot to me. All right, preacher, you got anything else you need to say? Okay.
I do have one thing. Me and Julie been invited tomorrow evening to go for the Giving Fellowship meal. I've been going to Steve's place for Sugar Creek. So me and Julie be going and represent Oak Hill tomorrow night. But she had wanted me to ask if anyone would be interested in being a Gideon. And I meant to mention this morning, but if you're interested or want to talk about it, he said you have to come tomorrow night and be part of that and ask some questions. I just want to get that out there.
If anybody would like to go study my place out on a Bible study. I'm just throwing that out there.
Where are they at?
It's at First Baptist.
So, okay, in their fellowship hall. Yeah, okay. Just looking some of the announcements there. Women's Bible study tomorrow night. Wednesday night we go to Morning Star. Love to have everybody come, and whether you sing or just come to look at the smiling faces of those that are hearing us sing, it's worth going. The job there next Saturday, I don't know, Russell, do you have anybody volunteer?
Yeah, we've got about 10 people so far.
Good. I wanted to go, but it's the same day as that all Civil Webster class reunion, and I was too committed to that, so I can't make it. But it's Cullowhee Valley Baptist Church has bought the old Wilkesdale building. It's the church that you can see up behind Kelsave. It's up on. That's where the work will take place. And if you're going 8 o'clock Saturday morning, and by letting Russell know, they'll have an idea of how many are coming to have some food for you. Next Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock, our choir singing at the Hermitage, not the Heritage. I did say that. Somehow I get creative in my thoughts. Bridal shower coming up on the 29th, Stephanie and Jack. And we are involved in the North Carolina State Missions offering, so let's keep that in mind. And I see where a couple of people are having birthdays. Becky and Jacob, you get a chance to wish them happy birthday. There's prayer requests in there. If you can do nothing else with the bulletin, you ought to take one home just to let that be a reminder to you each week. These folks that need your prayers. There's health situations there. There's spiritual situations there, and yeah, I promise you, I'm sure each one of you could add a few additional names and situations to your list, but I would encourage you to use your bulletin that way too. All right, anybody got anything you need to say before we go home?
Stephanie, are you registered? Are y'all registered? Okay. We'll put it in next week. Okay. Okay.
Tonight? Okay, those of you in the choir, if you would stay for choir practice, and let's stand and we'll be dismissed. Again, I know there's several in our church that have had opportunity over years to go and do missions trips. Kim, where did you go? Romania. Okay. Brazil. That's right. Anyone else here that's traveled to Eddie? Eddie's been to Honduras, once? Okay. Well, pray about it. Those opportunities are out there, and keep your passport up to date. You never know when your phone's going to ring, and the chance to be able to go and serve the Lord that way. And as always, you go and you hope you're a blessing to the people there, but it'll bless your heart, I promise. I'm telling you. All right, let's pray. Father, we're so thankful to come and together here. I thank you for my church family. Lord, I thank you for their love and support. And I just pray you bless them. Father, help us all to go outside this building determined to live for you, looking and listening for opportunities to get involved with people that need to know you. And just give us that strength and courage and help us to be bold in our faith. Help us to take those opportunities to share. Thank you for opportunities that we've had to go and to travel and to be a missionary and represent you and represent our church family. Lord, we thank you for that. Lord, just be with us as we go. Thank you for all you do. For it's in Christ's name. Amen.